My position is that Bush is guilty of murder, not a mistake. So he and I are talking about two completely different things. Obviously, Charles, my book is, and I've had many best-selling books, but this is the most explosive book of my career.
Indeed it is.
Putting George Bush on trial for murder in an American courtroom. The evidence in this case is, and I underline the word evidence because my whole life as a prosecutor and a true crime writer only deals with evidence. The evidence in this case is overwhelming that George Bush knowingly and deliberately took this nation to war under false pretenses, and therefore, under the law, he is guilty of murder for the deaths of over 4,000 young American soldiers who have died so far in his war in Iraq. And let's not forget about the fact that over 100,000 innocent Iraqi men, women, children, and babies have also died horrible deaths because of George Bush's war. In my opinion, what we're talking about here is the biggest crime ever committed by a public official or private citizen in American history. And if justice means anything in America, and if we're not going to forget about these 4,000 troops, right now as I'm talking to you, Charles, they're in their cold graves decomposing. If we're not going to forget about these 4,000 troops that came back from George Bush's war in a box or a jar of ashes, I say we have no choice but to bring murder charges against Bush. Now, I hope we have some time on the show for me to get into some of the evidence. I've got a whole book of evidence.
Well, we want you to do so, and it's all evidence we have tried to detail over the years on this program.
Prosecution of George W. Bush for murder. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, Alex, I don't like to see anyone get away with murder, much less over 100,000 murders. When you stop and think about the thousands upon thousands of deaths in Iraq, and the horror and the screaming and the sea of blood and the incredible suffering there, it's unimaginable. And the question is, who's going to pay for all of this? Someone has to pay. And the person that has to pay, obviously, is the one that's responsible for all of this horror and death and suffering. And that person, the evidence shows, is George Bush. So far, he's gotten away with murder. This book, The Prosecution of George W. Bush for Murder, may put an end to it, may put him where he belongs in an American courtroom being tried for murder. This obviously is the most explosive book of my 30-year career. I've had 3 books, got up to #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, Outrage on the Simpson Case, Helter Skelter, and The Sea Will Tell. And this book is not my magnum opus. That's Reclaiming History, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, which is presently being made by Tom Hanks and his people into a 10-hour miniseries for HBO. But this is the most explosive book. I'm dead serious about it. In George Bush's first speech to the nation, Alex, on Hussein in Iraq, October the 7th, 2002, Cincinnati, Ohio, he told Americans that Hussein was a great danger to America, either by Hussein attacking us with weapons of mass destruction or giving these weapons to some terrorist group to do so. And he said that this attack could happen, quote, on any given day, unquote, meaning that the threat was imminent. The only big problem for George Bush, and I don't know how he would get around this at the trial, is that on October the 1st, 2002, 6 days earlier, the CIA sent George Bush its 2002 National Intelligence Estimate, a top-secret classified report representing the consensus opinion of all 16 U.S. intelligence agencies on the issue of whether Hussein was an imminent threat to the security of this country. And on page 8 of that report, it clearly and unequivocally says, and what I'm about to tell you, to my knowledge, has never appeared before in any American newspaper, any major American paper or magazine. Page 8 clearly says Hussein was not an imminent threat to the security of this country.